Hello everyone, welcome back to Tina Teach JavaScript 101 Variables, one of the core foundation of any programming language. First off, with variables, let's do a little bit of get to know me. Variables are basically storage container for data. They can be declared in four ways. They can be declared automatically. So by default, without your help, through the var keyword, through the let keyword, and through the const keyword. Now, what does automatically means? These are declared by default when you first code them in, when you first write them in. For example, x equals to true. So we already have an x, and we already assigned it the value of true. The same with y, we assigned it the character h. Z is the value, the evaluation of 5, because 2 plus 3 is an expression that evaluates into 5. So this is what it means when you just declare a variable as is without the usage of any keyword. Moving on to var. The var keyword was used in all of JavaScript from 1995 and onward. So when you write for old system or old browsers, they may not be able to support or have the latest version of JavaScript. Therefore, you should use a keyword that's been with JavaScript for the longest time to ensure that everything is working well, right? Like coding is already hard enough. We don't want to make it even harder with any incompatibility issues. Variable x equals to true, variable y equals to h, variable z equals to 5 is the exact same thing over here, but now we use the var keyword. And you may think, what's the difference between not using these keywords and using these keywords? As we explore on with variables, there are a lot of implications for use different types of keyword, and it has something to do with scope as well. But for now, let's just settle with the basics. Let and const. The keyword let and const were added in 2015, so unlike var, they may not ensure compatibility with older systems or older browsers, and you use them pretty much the same way as you would with var. Let x equals true, const x equals true. So now we have the syntax out of the way, right? The syntax part is the easiest part. When do we use const, let, or var? Always use const if the value should not be changed or the type should not be changed, okay? So you're using this for very strict values, like this value could not be changed under any circumstances. Only use let if you cannot use const. Only use var if you're working with old browsers. Now, these are just one of the few conditions that would dictate, when you can use certain keywords. Obviously, as you learn more, you'll come to discover that there's actually a lot of caveats. There are a lot of nuances based on whether or not you should use var, let, or const in a particular scenario. Identifiers, we're talking about variable names. Variables should have unique names. Now, since we're just talking, JavaScript 101, the whole naming a variable thing is very important in any programming language, but as you become a more advanced coder, you will learn a variety of ways that you should and should not name a variable. So I'm just telling you right now, it's a whole can of worms. The higher you go, but for now, with the basics, there are general rules that you must abide by, so you can ensure that everything's working well and it doesn't have any sort of quirks. Identifiers, a variable names must only consist letters, digits, underscores, and the $sign. It can begin with a letter, a $sign, or an underscore. A variable name is also case sensitive, so an lowercase h and uppercase h are two different variables. Last but not least, a variable name cannot be a reserved words like func or let or var or any of the keywords that you'll be learning along with me. So you absolutely cannot use those, otherwise JavaScript will get confused and it will think that you're trying to execute something here, when in case you're not. One statement, many variable. This is possible through the use of a comma. If you pay attention to the one of the previous lessons, I did mention that with JavaScript, using the semicolon, you can actually put multiple expressions on one line separating by a semicolon. And you can do the same using a comma with declaring a lot of variables at once. So, we have car age, car price, car on sale, and these are all on one line separated by a comma, and end, remember, end by a semicolon. And it doesn't have to be on one line. You can just simply put them on each new line as long as you remember the comma and to end with a semicolon. Undefined. Now, what is that? Sometimes it's not possible to assign a value beforehand, especially if, it needs to be calculated or it needs to be taken from somewhere. So, for example, a user, and you couldn't possibly know what each user would input. So the best method is to have an undefined variable. And you can easily do this with var and const as well, not just let car price, and then end it with a semicolon. That's it. It works like that. Moving on to redeclaring. Now, redeclaring is basically writing the variable or declaring a variable one more time or any number of times after it has already been declared or assigned. If you redeclare a variable with the var keyword, it will not lose its value, okay? But it's a whole different story with let or const. Let or const is a bit more specialized. Var, it's more forgiving. So I have an example, var car name equals to Ford. And if I redeclare it again with car name, it is still going to be Ford if I print this out. Okay, however, if it's let or const, you're going to have a different value altogether, or you may have some errors that go with it. Last but not least, let's talk about this interesting topic, numbers or integers. Using quotations, we can transform an integer into a string and allow for concatenation. Concatenation is basically a fancy way of saying adding everything together, or like appending, right? But we're not adding numbers by any means. We're not adding arithmetic. This is concatenation for strings. Now, let's go with the first regular example. No quotations. 2 plus 3 equals 2. 5. It evaluates into 5. Now, if we all go by string, hello plus base plus world, all of that concatenated into hello world. Now, here's the interesting part. If you pair an integer with a string, the integer becomes a string, so they get added together just like you would with the second example up here. Now, if you make an integer a string by using quotation and you add it to some more integers, it will evaluate into a string for all three of them. So you would have 255. So it's not going to be 210, or it's not going to be 2 plus 5 plus 5. Okay, they will be all treated as string, and it's very interesting. You can experiment it around a little bit. You can try with, the Boolean values and the floats. We have div test. I'm going to duplicate this and make it test 2 and test 3. and then var car name. And we're gonna give it a value, okay? Car name equals to Honda. And then document dot get element by ID test dot inner HTML car name. And then let's go one more time reassigning car name for document get element by ID. We're gonna see whether or not car name retains the value of Honda or it has the new value of Ford. I'm going to do that for test 2 instead of test 1. It goes to car name, and let's test it out. So you can see Honda and then Ford, okay? It changes value. Moving on to variable x equals to 2, and then plus 10. But the 2 is a string, so we're going to print this out and see whether or not, it's 210 or like 12 or something. I'm going to mess around with this a little bit. So instead of integer, I'm going to make it a string. Okay, so it doesn't give us anything. There's an additional quotation over there. I'm going to delete that. And it should give us 210 like it did before. 210. And then let's try 4 plus 3. So 3 is a string, 4 is an integer. We get 43. Next up, let's try 4 plus 3, 7. And then hi there. So that's it for today's lesson. Thank you for tuning in, and I really appreciate you watching until the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, and stay tuned for Let. Have a wonderful day.